again, Gray. How are you doing?
Man, it has been a busy day at the office, but I am glad to be here now talking a little Carolina sports, let off a little steam.
Yes.
It's exciting. And this is my second time on, so I appreciate you having me back on after our draft special earlier this week.
Dude, you absolutely crushed it in the draft special. Again, if you missed it, this is the All Access podcast where we are talking about Carolina sports, and we had that mock draft, so you can catch that replay on YouTube. If you're watching it now live, join the discussion. Hop over in the chat. Let us know what you want to talk about. Join in the conversation. Tell us we're awful. Tell us we're great. Let me know that I don't look good with a hat. I know it's the first one I've done without a hat, so I feel a little naked in here right now. Oh.
That's funny.
So just what I like to start things off a little easy. So for dinner, what did you do anything special for dinner tonight? I just want to, see where we're at.
You know what, Bradley? I haven't even had dinner tonight yet. It's going to be a late dinner for Grace Salter. I had a late lunch today. I told you I was busy at the office today.
Yeah.
Didn't eat lunch till about probably 2 o'clock. So I'm gonna be pushing dinner a little late.
Man, as a little bit of a larger individual, I hate to hear that you haven't had dinner yet, man. I hate to hear that. Nick, thank you so much for hopping in the chat. First one to join us here in the All Access Lounge says that Gray had his first solo demo. Yeah, great. Sounds like he spread his wings and flew out with his job that he has. So making big moves over there. And now we're lucky enough and fortunate to have him on the All Access podcast. So
appreciate you, Nick. Appreciate you, man.
Yeah, dude, appreciate everyone. We're going to get straight into the sports now. We're going to shy away from the food talk. First things first. What's the biggest thing happening in Carolina sports?
Well, Carolina sports. AJ Bouye, that was a pretty big deal for
Massive.
Panther fans. I feel like I got to harp on that a little bit just because of the last episode that I was on and maybe some of the implications that'll have on some things that we were talking about together. I also wore this jersey for a reason tonight. Go Canes, because they're playing right now against the Florida Panthers, and they're currently up 1-0. So good luck to our Canes tonight, obviously. And, man, they're rolling right now, huh?
Yeah, they are absolutely rolling. And it's funny to hear national media talk about them because 2 years ago, maybe even a year ago, I guess, technically, who was it? Was it Don? I could be wrong, but I'm just going to say it was Don Cherry that was calling them a bunch of jerks. They were no fun. They were a bunch of fun suckers, the vacuums of fun, if you will, were the Carolina Hurricanes, and no one liked them because they were just making it a party. But they are the most fun team, in my opinion, to watch in the NHL, and I love to see what they're doing right now. And like you said, they're up 1-0. They're just going to keep rolling, right?
Man, I love the style of play that the Canes play with. A bunch of jerks, man, and they really go at people. It's fun to watch. They've got this style of play, man, where some teams like the Lightning, who are another really good team in this league, and some more technical teams, they'll work the puck around, and they're very selective with their shots, and they take good shots, they create good shots. But man, the Canes, their philosophy is almost like if you get a glimpse in net, just rip it, just take it, just take the shot. And they are some exciting games, man. You'll see shot after shot, and some of them aren't good shots, but some of them are, you don't think they're good shots, and they wind up going in. So, the Canes, they just put a ton of pressure on you offensively. They're really deep. They've got a young core. They're a really exciting team, and I think they have a chance to be good for a little while here.
Yeah, and you mentioned one thing about them just kind of throw it at the net and see what happens. I love that play style. Not to quote exactly what Wayne Gretzky meant by this, but you miss 100% of the shots you don't take, and they take full advantage of that. Just get it in there, dump it in, hope something happens, kick it off a stick, off a skate, off a knee pad, whatever it is. Let's just get some goals, get happy, and move on to the next game. As we move forward, you mentioned AJ Bouye, a huge signing for the Carolina Panthers. What do you think that means for the draft? A lot of people were thinking, or fingers crossed, that it was going to be Surtain, probably going to take a guy a little bit later in the draft now. Where are they going to be going in the first round?
I think it screams offensive line, and that's fantastic for Panther fans. It's good news. We won't talk about it too much on this show just because I know last show we went in pretty good detail on it. But there's two offensive linemen that are probably one of the two, if not both, are going to be available to the Panthers at pick 8 in Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater. And either one of those guys is going to make a great addition to that Panther roster if that's where they decide to go. And I think that the AJ Bouye signing is pointing more and more in that direction. Kyle Pitts, still a possibility, though. No tight end, really, aside from, Anderson. So, and Dan Anderson's, he's a good tight end, but I wouldn't say he's, a superstar tight end in this league. So there's definitely room to improve there still. I wouldn't be surprised if the Panthers went to Pitts if he falls at 8. But with Pitts being as talented as he is, very much so possible that he could go prior to 8.
Yeah.
And I think with all the moves that Carolina has made, it really is an offensive line look. It looks like for the Panthers, they're sitting at 8. I'll tell you this too, Bradley. I was thinking about this in the car on the way home, thinking about this podcast a little bit.
Drive time thoughts.
That's right. It's right. It's going to be a trench heavy draft, I think, for the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
And I think that's exciting, man. We talked about football's won in the trenches. Your good inside play fuels your good outside play on both sides of the football. And when the Panthers were at their best, they had fantastic inside and outside play on both sides of the wall, on both sides of the ball. Excuse me. On the defensive end, I mean, you had K1 Short in his prime. Charles Johnson was great for a while there for the Panthers. Obviously, Julius Peppers came back and made his little stint with us, and probably wasn't as good. But when the Panthers have been winning football games, they're strong on the defensive side inside. Same goes for the offensive side of things. I mean, don't forget too long ago, the Panthers had a pretty solid offensive line aside from that left tackle position in 2015 where they were rotating guys in that left tackle position. But Andrew Norwell was on that team and ended up being a Pro Bowl offensive lineman, got signed to a huge deal with the Jaguars.
Massive.
So, I mean, big inside play has been a big deal for Carolina in the past, and this draft is a chance to get back to that place. We've got the skill positions on the outside. We got Sam Darnold with a fresh start. Let's protect him. Let's help out some of these young guys on defense with pressure up front. I like the mentality here. I think it's going to be a big man draft for the Panthers, and that's exciting.
I hope it is, man. Like you said, man, they laid the foundation last year with the defensive line. You take 2 big guys in the first 2 rounds with Yeater and Derek Brown. Those are your first 2 picks that you took off the board. Flip that to the other side, and I think that's what they're going to be doing. You've mentioned Kyle Pitts. Love him. I don't know if he'll make it that far. There's a lot of teams that are interested above the Carolina Panthers that would love to have a guy of that caliber, of that talent. Atlanta, Miami, 2 that come to mind the most. I don't know if they'll take him, but offensive line, I think you've got to start there. Like you said, if you go position by position on this team and you want to find and spot the weaknesses, I don't see how you can't have tackle, guard in the top 3 or 4 positions just to fill those. Those are your main needs right now. You've addressed the cornerback situation somewhat with A.J. Bouye, who's still going to miss, 2 games because of his performance-enhancing suspension. So in a 17-game season or in an 18-game season or whatever it is now, you're not sure how that's going to play out. But I think offensive guard or offensive tackle is where they're going to go, and I like both of those guys. Do you prefer one play style over the other? A lot of people think that someone from the Big Ten or the SEC is of higher caliber than someone that plays in, say, the Pac-10 or the ACC because the defenses and the offenses are so much better there. Do you have a preference?
I think, there is something to be said for playing the best teams every week, week in and week out. And, Penei Sewell was in a Power 5 conference and obviously had the opportunity to do so. And played against some big-time opponents, shut them down. I mean, he's an animal.
Yeah.
Thing is, man, is tape doesn't lie, and it's still college football. It's still Division I college football. You still got really great athletes out there who are putting their blood, sweat, and tears on the line. So to watch a guy like Rashawn Slater, who maybe didn't play quite the same competition, he was still a dominant football player. And on top of that, played Ohio State with Chase Young, as we mentioned on the last episode, and shut him out. I mean, shut him out of the game. So I think, you do have to take it with a grain of salt. I know it's a different sport, but look at the NBA. I mean, some of the best stars in the NBA nowadays are coming from really small places. Steph Curry, obviously, with Davidson, C.J. McCollum from Lehigh, John Morant out of Murray State. I mean, you're seeing some really big-time players come from places where they never really were exposed to, that level of competition. So I think either one of those guys is going to be a starting left tackle day one for whichever team picks them. And if that's the Panthers, that'll be really exciting for us.
Yeah, and I think that's something that a lot of people are in the mindset of down here is that SEC is king. Get the SEC guys, and I don't know if I live and die by that standard. I think if you can play, you can play. Doesn't matter where you are. If you can ball, I want you on my team, unless your name's Adam Morrison. But we don't talk about that squad anymore because Adam Morrison Go ahead. You want to talk about him?
I was gonna say I'll tell you this really quick too, man. A guy who comes out of high school, maybe he's a 3-star recruit. He feels like he should have been graded higher. He's gonna have a chip on his shoulder. He gets to a place where he's playing Group of 5 football, maybe Division II football, and he's he's out to prove a point, man. That those kind of guys, they grind and they hustle at practice every day. They're first one in, last man out. That's the type of players you get from smaller programs like that. Take Jeremy Chin for an example.
That's where I was getting ready to say. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, you get those guys with that type of mentality because they know they've got to be special to stand out. You get a guy, every guy who goes to Ohio State's a 4 or 5-star recruit, right? Every guy who goes to Alabama's a 4 or 5-star recruit.
Yeah.
So, you start piling those guys on, they all feel special. And they all think they're special. And, I got a scholarship from Bama, right? Some of those guys don't earn it as much. They rely on natural talent to push them through. And there comes a point where everybody's talented, and it goes further than that. Who's going to work the hardest? Who's got the best mentality? Who's going to put in the extra time to win football games? And when you look at some of those group of 5 teams and you look at some of the guys coming out of less recognized programs, you're going to find guys who had to find ways to stand out. And they're going to bring that to your football team. That mentality doesn't go away. So I think that's something also to be said for guys who come from smaller programs.
Yeah, and the coaching staff, I think, is going to echo those sentiments. I mean, you bring on a bunch of guys who, like you said, they weren't necessarily top-tier draft picks. They've been doubted. They've been hated on. Robbie Anderson, we talked about him. He was a one-trick pony, just run and go route. Sam Darnold hasn't had the best start where he's come from. Some of these defensive linemen, the defensive backs, they're saying, oh, you're not good, you're too young, you're not fast enough, Jeremy Chin. And I think that's something that the mantra, keep pounding, has always been to this team. And I hope to see that continue into this upcoming season, because I'm so hyped that the national media is starting to say, like, hey, they really are putting stuff together. Like, we knew they were going to get some things going, but I have a lot of faith in Matt Rule and this coaching staff, and I'm excited to see where it's going to be going in the next few years, if not this year. It wasn't on the rundown. We weren't going to talk about it, but playoffs this year, yes or no? Just need a yes or no.
No. And that's me being honest and thoughtful about it. I mean, I have thought about this a little bit. Just think about this, man. Talent is talent, right? So we're getting guys who are good football players, but a team like Kansas City maybe, or a team like I'm trying to think of a good example. The Steelers have a lot of guys who've been around together for a while. Mm-hmm. Those guys have meshed together. They have chemistry, and they find ways to win outside of talent sometimes, I think. And so, the Panthers have a ton of talent. I think that's exciting. I think there's a very good chance they make the playoffs. If I had to decide today, though, man, they play in a really tough division. The Saints and the Bucks, obviously, and that being, the two that come to mind right away. And this is going to be a new team, a quarterback learning a new system, a coach and an offensive coordinator in their second season together in the NFL, right? Doing what they're doing. So there's still going to be learning curves for these guys meshing together. This is an offensive line unit that's now going to be kind of on a fresh start. There's only going to be a couple returners on that offensive line. The defense is obviously really young with us spending all of our draft picks last year on defense and signing some guys here and there. But that core of the defense is still very young. So there's going to be things to learn. To me, this is a team that they're trying to build for. I mean, I think they're going to be trying to win this year, obviously, but I think they're looking at this team being really good next season, the season after. Like, this is going to be a team that's not just good this year. They're looking to build this team to be consistently good over the next 3, 4, 5 years, and I think that's exciting. They're not looking for instant success. They're looking for, like, let's get good now, but let's try to keep that momentum rolling.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's something me and Mac have been into before, where I'm like, hey, Boston of a few years ago when they were just winning everything, I want that to be Carolina in the upcoming future, man. I want the Hornets are clearly on the up once they get healthy. We'll get into that here in just a minute. The Hurricanes, they were good last year. They're good this year. They have a lot of youth on that team and great coaching from Rod Brindamore. They're heading in the right direction, and so are the Panthers. And I think together, all three of these teams can really bring a lot of excitement to the sports world. And then Charlotte FC, they're coming soon. No idea where they're going to be, but just exciting times here in Carolina sports.
It's a bit of a rebirth. It really is.
It's refreshing for sure.
It was Cam and Kemba, for a really long time at the major two sports there, and then the Canes are obviously had their moment, but they fell back from that, after the Stanley Cup, weren't super great after that for a long time. And, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. This feels like a rebirth. The Canes are consistently a top 5 team in the NHL this season, if not top 3.
Mhm.
And the Hornets obviously have an extremely young core, but good players. Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier, LaMelo Ball,
Yeah,
Miles Bridges, PJ Washington,
it's
Malik
fun.
Monk. I
It's
mean, the
fun.
list goes on and on and on. And then you toss the Carolina Panthers into that
Heck
mix,
yeah.
like we've been saying. So I mean, it is so much young talent. This group of fans, Carolina sports fans, should be really excited because the next 5 years is looking up and up for us. It's
Yeah,
it's cool.
and the way Cam and Kimba both left the Kuechly retirement, the way that everything happened left such a bad taste in my mouth that it's
Yeah.
nice to have a rebound like this. Like it feels like there's something positive on the other side of this. So I'm really, really excited about that. Just a reminder, this is the All Access podcast. Charlotte Sports, your home for sports in the Queen City. Just to catch you up on the chat, because they're joining us live on YouTube as we record this podcast. Nick says, don't at him. Panthers are winning the championship this year. Man, I love Nick. Man, he is so positive. He is the man. David Brown says, you're always streaming when the Canes are on. Well, like we said, man, you can listen to the podcast anytime on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can listen to us or just watch the replay here on YouTube. And he also mentioned that he loves the sweater. So if you are listening on the podcast, come check out this sweater because that thing is nice, man. Who's on the back of it?
This is a jersey that I get to decide who I want it to be whenever I want.
I like
There's
it.
no name and number on the back. It's just a generic.
I gotta be
Canes.
honest. I have to say I have one for the Panthers, and it's my favorite because you can just see the front. It looks good anytime you wear it.
Yeah. There you go.
Oh, Rylan says you got to learn how to multitask. That is also very true, man. You just got to learn. Listen, you can watch the game and let us talk. You can see what's happening. You don't need to listen to the team anymore. All right. Anything else you want to add about the Panthers? Because I really want to get into this Hornets talk here in just a minute. A lot of exciting things happening there.
Let's do it. We harped on the Panthers for an hour and 20 minutes last episode, so we'll move on.
And the draft's coming up, so we're gonna harp on them a lot more. Charlotte Hornets, they're in the middle of their season, man. We're past the All-Star break. Lots of injuries happen. It looked like things were not going to have a very good ending. But now you're looking at a team that's 4-3 in their last 7 games. The next couple of games they have is Milwaukee, Atlanta, a winnable game. The Lakers, maybe not. Cleveland, a winnable game. And then the Nets, who they've already faced twice this year. And the Nets want to sit their players every single time they play the Hornets. So we'll see how that turns out. But Charlotte Hornets, where do you see them going the next few games?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head, Bradley. I think they've got some really winnable games coming up. I'll say this about Charlotte, though, man. This season, it's kind of interesting. I think they play to their opponent a lot. So
100% agreed.
When they play good teams, they play fantastic. They put together a great game, and it's always close. They've beat the Nets already this season. I mean, they've got some good wins against some good teams. And then sometimes they play teams, and you go, oh, the Hornets are going to run away with this game. And it's close, or the other team blows them out. Yeah, it's unbelievable. So I think that's something to maybe shore up if you're the Hornets, is just being a little more consistent with the energy and the effort that you're bringing each night. But dude, this is a great team, and they've got a lot of talent. We've been saying that, and I see them, winning the majority of the rest of those games. I think, obviously they've got some challenges, but I think they have a good possibility of coming out of that over 500 for the rest of those games.
Yeah.
And making the playoffs. It's the East is a tight race, but I mean, they're right there. So I think it's really exciting for the Hornets in the terms of, I think when Kemba left, people got pretty down about this franchise, thinking it was going to be, potentially decades before this team actually got relevant again. And, I'm not going to pretend that the Hornets are ready to win an NBA championship, but they have suddenly become a marketable franchise for people to come to. You've got a young core of guys that we keep saying. You've got one of the most electrifying young players in Lamelo Ball, whose game is distributing first and foremost. So it's not like he's a guy who, if you're a superstar, you look at and you say, well, he's going to take all my shots away and he's going to keep me from getting the ball. It's the opposite. He's going to feed me the ball. He's going to take eyes away from me. You add Gordon Hayward to that mix. They're going to have to let go some of these young guys because their contracts are going to, come to a close, and they're going to have to decide who to keep, who to leave. But they're going to have some great options. And Mackie and I have talked a lot about, could they put together some good trade packages with a couple of these young guys who maybe they decide, we're probably not going to re-sign this guy. Let's package together 2 or 3 players, maybe a player and a pick, and send them off and get that one more piece that we really need to be a top 5 team in the East on a consistent basis.
Yeah, I don't disagree, man. You have when healthy, an abundance of wealth back there with Malik, Terry, Devontae, and Lamelo. Lamelo just recently named one of the top 10 under 23 years old behind Luka and Zion. I don't know how I feel about that. I don't know if I'm ready to crown him top 3 best young gun in the league. He's very good though, but there's still a crazy amount of good talent out there. But yeah, these pieces are coming together. And just to go back to Gordon Hayward that you mentioned, he has been worth every penny of that contract. I didn't love the contract initially because
I agree.
We were also just hurt because of the Nick Batum contract, who,
right,
God forbid, we ever have to deal with that situation again.
Which Gordon, just the situation reflected it a little bit, right? I mean, it felt like a similar situation.
Exactly. It felt like you were overpaying for a guy that did his role well and couldn't handle anything more than that. But he comes in here and just, sets it on fire, basically. Like, was playing back at his all-star pre-injury level. And it's unfortunate that he goes down. But like you said, if this team can just hang at about 500, I think they're still, 5 games into the playoffs? Essentially 5 games away from being out of the playoff race, so to speak.
Right.
If they can just hang out and be 500, maybe just a little bit less than 500, you're still going to squeeze in as a 10 seed, a 9 seed, and you are going to be a team that people are afraid to be playing when healthy. If Lamelo comes back, Gordon comes back, Malik comes back, because then you have these new guys like Jalen McDaniels who puts up 23 points or whatever it was last night. And that's going to be dangerous. A healthy Hornets team that low in the standings is not something people want to see.
I really like that this team too has learned to not rely on any one specific player. You can see guys go down here and there or what have you, or a guy gets hot, and they feed him the ball. Or if a guy goes down, they say, all right, next man up. And his team has adapted to winning without some of its superstars, and that's impressive. Not everybody knows how to do that. And it's not as deep a team. We say we have a lot of young talent, but I mean, a team like the Nets, they can sit Harden and Kyrie, and KD can go in the game for them, or they can sit, KD and Kyrie and Harden can go in the game for them. So they've got, and on top of that, a bunch of supporting cast as well to support them in still winning games. The Hornets, LaMelo Ball was like the man, obviously, almost halfway into the season, and he's this young guy. Gordon Hayward is a great player, but I would not say he's, the superstar maybe that even he was when he was at Utah and transitioning to the Celtics. So this is a team with good players, but it's not a team where you would think, they could lose a couple guys and be all right. But James Borrego has molded this team into a great system, and he's got all these guys bought in. And that's teams that win in the playoffs and teams that progress over time, like this, like maybe the old Spurs did and stuff, like those are good teams, and they play good basketball, and they don't rely on an individual to go win them the game every single night. And that's, man, if I'm coaching, it's scary to look at a guy like LeBron, obviously, and the Lakers have put together a good team around him, so this is a little bit less relevant. But like looking at a team like Cleveland with LeBron and no supporting cast versus a team like maybe the classic San Antonio Spurs with Parker and Ginobili and those guys, I mean, I'd much rather play Cleveland with LeBron and just say, you know what, I want to put 5 people on LeBron and see if I can win this game. Teams that play basketball find ways to win games. They don't have to rely on one guy. If he goes cold, they hit the next man. The Hornets have put themselves in that spot. And as a small franchise, that's the way you have to do it. And I'm excited for them.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that people keep forgetting is Borrego comes from that Popovich coaching tree. That San Antonio Spurs team you just talked about, that people should be afraid to play because out of a 5-game, 7-game series, whatever it's going to be, you should be afraid that after 2 games, they're going to figure you out. They're going to know how to shut you down. They can't stop the three-pointer. I'll admit that. We can't stop the three-pointer. But in a series-long battle, this team is going to fight until the end. We've seen it in games, and now we're going to be able to see it over an entirety of a playoff contest.
I'm not sure I've ever once gone into the playoffs with the Hornets, being there and thought to myself, it's always been a possibility that they could get swept.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? I think this year I would be honestly shocked if they get swept in any playoff series. I think they're winning at least a game in any playoff series that they get.
I would agree.
They're a competitive team. And we've talked about how they step up for the big moments. They're one of the best clutch teams in the NBA. Terry Rozier to thank for that, for a lot of it. This team plays big in big moments and against big teams, and you put them in a playoff scenario where they've got a chance to put that system to the test in a big-time environment. Who knows, man? Maybe they do play to that competition. They do step up to the stage, and they put together something cool. I mean, we've seen teams do it before. I would say in the NBA, it's harder to win a series when you're not the better team. But the Hornets have put together a good team and a competitive team, and it's going to be hard to outmatch that, I think, unless you're one of the top dogs, Lakers, Nets, what have you.
Yeah, they've far exceeded my expectations, many people's expectations of what they were going to be. Still some murmurs that Lamelo should be getting Rookie of the Year honors. Even with his injury, if he doesn't come back, maybe Anthony Edwards, I feel like, has played a little bit below what we anticipated he would be. But he is getting an abundance of time over there in Minnesota, where he is going to be the focal point down the line. With Gordon, Lamelo, and Malik, spark plug, the battery pack. If these three guys are sitting because they are injured and they come back for the playoffs, do you think this little bit of time resting LaMelo's young legs, Gordon's older legs, do you think that's going to kind of be a benefit? Or do you think it's going to hurt them because, hey, you're not getting as much time with the team, you might be out of sync, or is it a good thing to kind of hopefully keep them a little bit fresher?
It's a really, really interesting question, Bradley. I hadn't thought of it that way.
I only bring good questions here, Gray.
You do. Somebody asked me how this podcast went last time, and I said, man, I really enjoyed it. You know what? Bradley asked great questions. It was really easy to keep the conversation flowing because you were right there. Dude, as soon as I was done with another good question. You are. Good interviewee. Or good interviewer. I'm the interviewee, kind of.
Hey, man, we're together, side by side, holding hands.
There you go. Yeah. Gosh, I kind of forgot what I was going to say. What were we talking about?
So resting their legs. I kind of heard someone get into it, but resting legs down the stretch is almost a benefit for Gordon, just because he needs it.
I like what you said specifically about LaMelo actually resting his legs. You would think as a younger player, he doesn't need rest, right? But think about what a typical, now LaMelo didn't play in college, but what a college basketball season length looks like, or a high school basketball season, or even it's not 82 games, and he's probably not used to that yet, even though he was playing professional ball overseas. These are bigger, stronger, faster athletes. There's a lot more going on. So, I think that's a huge benefit to LaMelo specifically. There is a phenomenon in the NBA that young guys get really tired about 3/4 of the way through the season.
Man.
They hit a wall and they just look flat for very long stretches at a time. So maybe that is a blessing in disguise for LaMelo, and he comes back in the playoffs and he's fired up to carry this team.
It'd be awesome.
For Gordon, I don't know. I know he's a veteran in this league. I honestly might say for him though that it could have been helpful to stay in, just because I think he is a little bit of a rhythm player. So for him to kind of keep that rhythm might have been beneficial. But I will say this, man. I think the benefit maybe lies less with Gordon and LaMelo and more with the team without Gordon and LaMelo. And
That's
I
a good point.
Talked about this a little bit briefly before, but that team's having to learn how to win without its best players.
Yeah,
those guys are going to come back and they're going to realize, well, we don't even have to rely on these guys anymore. If they're not on the floor, we can still win basketball games, and that's going to make this team more confident and B a lot scarier to other people.
Yeah, when you have to start worrying about more people than just those three guys who accounted for 44% of all scoring offense, you don't have to just worry about those guys. It does truly become that team aspect, like you said, where it was Ginobili, Parker, Duncan, and all these, Ori, all these guys were able to score a bucket, and you had to worry about them and be mindful of where they were on the court, not just one guy. So it's going to be interesting to see them down the course. Like we said, Milwaukee, Atlanta, LA Lakers, Cleveland, and the Brooklyn Nets will be the next 5 games for them. Just a small note for you, man. Nito Niederreiter scored a goal. 2-0 Hurricanes, man. So trying to go for a little mini sweep of the Florida Panthers, I believe, who, as you mentioned, one of the better teams in the NHL, but not as good as the Carolina Hurricanes, who, if you haven't seen them play yet, one of the most fun
not,
teams.
Man. We really have had the best of the Panthers, at least as of late. I'll tell you what, the Canes have had a pretty good stretch too recently. I mean, they've had to play some tough teams. They split games with the Blackhawks. They beat the Tampa Bay Lightning twice in a row after losing, I think it was team. 3 games in a row to them earlier this season. Yeah. So, yeah, that was huge. The Canes needed that one, man. To play the Lightning and beat them 2 games in a row, proving to themselves that they can win potentially a playoff series with those guys, that is huge.
Oh, absolutely.
And the Carolina Hurricanes play in such a tough division inside of hockey. I mean, and, they've got it set up right now because of COVID and everything. They're playing with Florida. They've got Tampa Bay, Chicago, Nashville's had a pretty good season. So, I mean, they've got a lot of competition within that division. We work with this guy, Mackie and I, at the office named Nick Lane, and he's a funny guy. He went to Arizona State, but he's actually a hockey player from Chicago.
It's an awkward place to be for a hockey
apparently
place.
They have a pretty good hockey team there, as funny as that is. Maybe intramural or something. I think it was intramural because he went there to play, but it was cool. Yeah. So anyway, he's a big hockey guy. We'll talk about hockey a little bit. And so he was kind of explaining to me, man, it's interesting this year because come playoff time, there could be some teams in the playoffs that don't necessarily belong there. And so if the Canes can just hold out, get to the playoffs, win a couple series there to start off, they might find that later on in the playoffs, they're playing teams that weren't as good as teams they were playing earlier in the playoffs, if that makes sense. So, I was talking to him, the Canadian division, aside from Toronto, is a pretty weak division. So Toronto's going to come out of there one of the best teams in the NHL, but they might get to the playoffs and get rocked because they haven't played anybody really worth anything all season. So it's going to be a really interesting NHL playoffs because you might see some really, really great series early on and potentially some blowout series later on in the playoffs.
Yeah, if you're a team that has nothing to lose, why not just throw it all out there? Like the Vegas Knights a few years ago, I feel like they came in as I could be completely wrong, but I feel like it was their first year, came out of nowhere, no one expected anything. Vegas Knights, all the way. Just mind-blowing what they went through. And you mentioned how good the Hurricanes division was. At one point, they were 3rd in their division, or tied for 2nd in their division, but still had the 3rd best record in the league. That's how good they are down there. Florida Panthers come in. I believe it was a 7-game win streak they were on. Shut that down last game. Now trying to go for that sweep of the Florida Panthers. And Hurricanes down the stretch, man. Like you said, if you get that little bit of confidence and say, oh, the Lightning, we've already beat them. Oh, the Panthers?
Right.
Oh, we beat them. Predators handled that. It puts you in a really, really, really good place. And then Rod Brind'Amour, man, I love him as a coach. I loved him as a player.
Isn't he the best? Isn't he the best?
What he stood for playing for this team, like everything that him and Ron Francis and all these guys back in the day were doing, like what you would see watching them when they went on their miracle little Stanley Cup run, you can see coming to fruition on this team. And they are still very young and are putting this together. It's so exciting.
Yeah. It is great. It's great. I mean, it's potentially the start of what hopefully is a little dynasty here in Raleigh and for the Hurricanes because, you talk about some of the young stars on the team. Obviously, Sebastian Aho, Svechnikov, I never pronounce his name right, but Dekas or Decis.
I think
DCS.
I call him Dekas.
Yeah,
we're just gonna go with
just great young players though. Seriously, that you can build a core around, and then you put in some of the veterans around them that they've got, and this team is ready to compete. And they've got an amazing fan base. Bias, I know, but the Canes have a great hockey fan base. They do, and when those games allow fans, they pack the crap out of that stadium. Man, it is awesome. So. I think this is a very good situation for this team in the long run. I wanted to say this really quick too. You were talking about, the Canes can be 2nd in their division and 3rd in the NHL. Right now, the Canes are 2nd in the division, right behind the Florida Panthers, who they're beating right now. And so the number 1 team in the NHL is Toronto, who I just said is playing consistently not very good teams. So we don't really know how good they are. I mean, obviously they're winning a lot within their division, so that means they've got to be pretty good. They're dominating that division, but it's the level of competition is just not there compared to some of these other ones. Colorado is fabulous this year. The Avalanche certainly could win a Stanley Cup. They've got a really solid team. They clock in it too.
Very good.
But then Florida, Carolina, Tampa Bay, are the next three teams. So Florida's the third best team in the NHL, Carolina's fourth, Tampa Bay's fifth, and those three teams are all in the same division, competing for that division. So it is awesome that the Canes find themselves in the best division in hockey and compete. They could win it. It's awesome. It's really great. It's so exciting.
Yeah, it's really exciting. David in the chat again, youtube.com/allaccess sports. David says they're an elite goalie away from a dynasty. I'm comfortable right now with the goalie play. I think they do what they do very well, but I would agree if there is one area that you're looking to upgrade, it's probably that. Just a few years ago, man, when Jeff Skinner came here, I felt like that was going to be the turning point of this team. He leaves. I was a little disappointed, but since then, this team has been on fire, man. Like, player after player just comes up through the system. I remember watching a lot of these guys play for the Charlotte Checkers when they were the affiliate, and I'd be like, God, these guys are so much fun to watch. They're fast, they're aggressive, and like you said at the beginning of the show, throw the puck and see what happens. Just clean up the garbage area. And,
it's awesome.
It's awesome.
If you guys are listening to chat, like if you're a Carolina Panther fan, you're a Hornets fan, and you know you obviously maybe like the Hurricanes, but you don't tune in. Y'all, this is the season to start watching the Hurricanes. It is so much fun. I had a couple of buddies here the other day, all sports fans, but not huge hockey fans. And I specifically was like, I'm putting on Canes Blackhawks tonight, right? Yeah. And we watched a fabulous hockey game. And they, by the end, they were like, this is awesome. Like, we why don't we watch hockey more? And I was like, y'all, the Canes are fun. You. Like, yeah, like, come on, like get on board. And they do, man. They just rip shots on net the whole time. And they're young and they fly around and they're really good. It's great hockey in the best division in the NHL. Yeah. If you're gonna watch the Canes, man, now is the time.
So I was never really a huge hockey fan, but playoff hockey, just a series of playoff hockey that goes into overtime, sudden death, is one of the most like surreal moments you get as a fan. Like, you have goosebumps watching everything happen, because on the flick of a wrist, literally, the game can end. You never know exactly what's going to happen. A player falls on the ice. There's an extra check down low. Like, it could change in an instant. And it's so much fun. And people are probably deterred because it's like, oh, the games are 2-1. Like, there's no scoring. Like, basketball's
it's so fast paced. Though.
It's like people who watch basketball are like, man, it's 121 to 118. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. But watch how fast these guys are going, because it's literally 60 seconds of maximum energy that these guys are putting out on the ice. Go rest up for a few minutes, grab some Gatorade, rotate back on there. And it is so fast, so fun. I encourage you to watch some hockey, especially before we get to the playoffs, where it is just amped up to another level. You'll have fans back in the stadiums, hopefully, and it's just going to be so much fun to watch this playoff run that the Canes are going to be making. I'm confident in that. David also says Canes drafting and scouting has been absolutely A1. That is a fact, man. They have not missed recently. Do you go to? Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say he also dropped in there. Go to a game. Tell me it's not the most or the best event you can go to. Electric. I'll tell you what, David. I've only been to two professional hockey games in my life, which is unfortunate. I wish it could be more than that. Great atmosphere. One of the games I was watching a Hurricanes Stars game there at PNC, and Luke Kuechly was the special guest to turn the horn, or
winding it up.
Or whatever. Yeah, it was great, and the crowd was just thundering, man. I mean, can you imagine Luke Kuechly getting the fans hyped up in a packed out PNC arena? It was so much fun, man. Hockey is absolutely electric. The sound of the skates on the ice and the sticks and the hits on the glass and the puck pinging off the pole. I mean, there's nothing like it. It's really cool.
It is a lot of fun. This show has been a lot of fun. I know we're kind of winding down here, getting to the closing bell, final seconds of this show. Anything that we haven't hit on that you want to talk on, chat, this is your chance to tell us what we need to finish and wrap the show up with. But Gray, anything that we haven't hit on today that you want to kind of get into, maybe something that's just kind of stuck in the back of your mind?
Interesting query there. I'll give you a good one, and this might get Panther fans a little riled up. So I was on Twitter the other day. And I can't remember exactly what the tweet said, but it was something like, something that you've never forgotten that you would argue to this day, or something like that. Like, it just irks you. It's on your mind. It haunts you a little bit, right? That was kind of the essence of the tweet, and so I immediately captioned it. Let me pull it up here. Give me a second. but it has to do with Super Bowl 50.
If
And
you bring up the catch or you bring up the kick,
so it's Brandon Marshall. It's the Brandon Marshall meme.
it's so good. That
And it
meme is
says,
so
"What
good.
what sports take you got that you're defending like this?" And I captioned it with, "Cautry caught it, and the entire game of Super Bowl 50 is monumentally different if it's ruled a catch.
Yeah.
40-yard completion versus a strip sack for a touchdown. Cam is a momentum player. The whole fabric of that game changes if it's ruled a catch. Still hurts me to this day." Caught a few likes and retweets for that one from Panther Nation because I think some of y'all felt my pain. And it was funny. The reason I bring that up is not to stir up old trouble, but it was funny that that tweet came up, and I'm not kidding you. That is like the very first thing that comes to my mind. And if you want to talk about it briefly, like, I mean, seriously, the entire fabric of that game changed
right there.
Dude, that play changed the entire Super Bowl. And then the fumble later was obviously really big, but like that, I don't even think that's happening, or it's not even an issue. If Cam completes that 40-yard pass, we're trotting down the field right there and scoring. I almost guarantee it. And instead, it's a strip sack for a touchdown, and that literally alters the course of the entire game. It got in the head of Mike Remmers all night. It got in the head of Cam Newton all night, and it put us back immediately against an offense that couldn't score. I mean, the Broncos they could not score in that game. The defense for the Panthers was absolutely phenomenal, and the offense, I think, was just sputtering after that first play, which unfortunately, in my humble opinion, biased opinion, sure, but humble opinion,
but a good one,
was a terrible call. He totally caught it. I think if that's reviewed today, and they check out that rule of like, is your hand under the ball? Like if the ground knocks it loose, then it's still a catch. It's absolutely ruled a catch. Like seriously, 9 times out of 10, it is the most frustrating thing I have ever had to look back and dwell on. So there's if you asked what's on my mind, that was kind of floating around for the last day or two.
Well, I appreciate you throwing it out there because I think most people would agree that was definitely a catch. It did change the fabric of the game. You know, like you said, neither offense was playing very well. Both defenses were electric that year for the Broncos and the Panthers. Both of them played out of there. Coney Ealy had one of the best Super Bowls in history, it felt like.
I know.
Unfortunately, we couldn't bring home the trophy for all of them because of that play. But
I'll tell you another fun little nugget about that season real quick. So I think I'm superstitious a little bit now. I'm not like really superstitious, but I'm
a little stitious.
I'm stitious, you know. And I think it all comes from the 2015 season. I think that's where it started for me. I wasn't superstitious then, but it transformed me, Bradley.
Yeah.
It changed me.
Okay.
So I watched every single game. I promise you this is a true story. I watched every single game of that season from the exact same spot in my house on the exact same TV, every game except for 2 games. I was in Chicago when we played the Falcons in the regular season and lost. I think it was the second to last game of that year.
Yeah, it was like week 14, 15.
And then I went to a Super Bowl watch party and didn't watch the Super Bowl. Not only that, it was a watch party hosted by a Broncos fan.
Oh, that's the problem.
What a trap that was, right?
It was a setup.
Ever in the playoffs too. I watched the playoff games before that from the same spot in my house, and then I was like, "Well, it's the Super Bowl. I got to go hang out with everybody and watch the Super Bowl." Stitches. Worst decision I ever made. I should have stayed right in my house. The Panthers would have caught it for 40 yards off the opening drive, and we would have won the Super Bowl. I blame myself. I do.
Yeah, I blame you too. I didn't know you then, but I blame you. I'm not superstitious. Like I used to be kind of superstitious. Like I had to do a lot of things and like even numbers when I was watching the game. I had to be wearing a certain jersey when I was watching the game. And then I got over it because I was like, it's not really my fault. But now every time we lose, I'm like, man, what if I just would have kept being superstitious? Like 10 years later, I'm like, what if?
Sure. Man, that season too was so frustrating because, believe it or not, like nobody in my friend group at the time was a Panther fan, even though we all live in North Carolina. Yeah. My friend group consisted of a Broncos fan, a Packers fan, a Falcons fan.
The worst.
Just random, seriously, like random teams. And so we in all season we were lighting it up, right? I mean, Cam was MVP, head and shoulders above everybody else. I mean, you know, I don't got to tell the story. So I walk into the lunchroom every day at my senior high school, just like the Panthers won again, like just rubbing it in people's face. Just
Okay.
Cam Newton, Cam Newton
All
every
day,
time.
man.
Just all day.
Dabbing on people.
Wearing my jersey to school after wins and stuff, just obnoxious.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so, yeah, I mean, the team's energy was passing on to me through my high school experience. So we fast forward to the Super Bowl. My friends, obviously, all being the people that I watched the Super Bowl with, all these random fans of other teams who I have been trashing on the entire season. I show up to this party. We lose the Super Bowl, and I'm not joking. I cried. I'm a diehard Panthers fan, man. How could I not? I'm invested in this. I feel like you all know this at this point. So, I was shedding tears sitting on the couch. I couldn't believe we lost. And every person in the room was like all stood up around me. The Panthers suck. And I just was like, man, I will never live this down for the rest of my life. It was pretty funny.
I can't believe your friends would do that to you, man. What kind of friends would ride one another like that? That is horrible.
I deserved it a little bit for what I had
for ragging on them
all year,
for 22 weeks.
Man,
you've been talking junk. Now they have one moment to get you back.
That's right.
But you know what? Success is coming back for this Panthers team.
It's gonna make that. That's gonna when it finally comes and we get that Super Bowl. I'm just. It's all going to be worth it.
It is going to be so nice. The first one had the kick out of bounds of John Casey. The second one had the Jericho Cotchery dropped pass. Both of them have had some amazing plays. Like we said, Mushin Muhammad, longest touchdown in Super Bowl history. Then Coney Ealy, one of the best defensive performances in Super Bowl history. So the next one, you got to have like Christian McCaffrey having one of the best running games in the history of the Super Bowl. DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson's going to go for like 275. Like it's going to be bonkers when they actually win this, and I'm so pumped about it.
I'm here for it, man. Christian McCaffrey, first player in a Super Bowl with 3 rushing and 3 passing or receiving touchdowns.
Dude, you heard so like 6 total?
6 total.
Dude, you heard it here first. Mark it. April 8th, 2021. Gray's calling it 6 touchdowns for Christian McCaffrey.
If that happens, I quit. I'm freaking out.
I am saving this video for that day. But this has been the All Access podcast for April 8th, 2021. To catch the replay, if you joined us a little bit late, find us on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, wherever you can find it, or just go back and watch the replay of this video. It's not that long. Listen to it on your way to work, on your way home, or at the gym. Don't care where you are. Let us know. Gray, do you want to give out your Twitter handle real quick before we go? I don't know.
Yeah, sure, man. It is at Gray_Salter. Pretty simple. AY for Gray, and Salter is SALTER.
There you go. Find Gray on Twitter. Find us at All Access CLT on Twitter. Find us, follow us, we'll follow back. Guys, thank you so much for joining us for the stream. Hopefully, y'all have a good one. Enjoy it. We'll see you Sunday night, 8 o'clock.